Okay, so you've read a book about a rat called Turnip and he runs away. He was really naughty, wasn't he? I wonder what he's going to do next. He might run away and then he might go up a tree. I wonder what he might do up there. Well, he is naughty, so he might steal some nuts to eat. And then they'll want to get him down, won't they? So what might Ben do? He might shake the tree, or he might shout at him. And then Turnip might not come down, or he might run down, or he might jump down. Where? Into his cage, maybe. Right, let me see. How am I going to say that? Then Turnip ran up a tree to eat some nuts. Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. Let me say it again. Then Turnip ran up a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. Then Turnip ran up a tree to eat some nuts. Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. Right, so the first word was then. Do we know a part of that? Then. Yeah, it starts like the, doesn't it? So it must look like that. Ooh. Capital or lowercase? Beginning of the sentence, we need a capital. N. Then turnip, turnip, turnip. Capital or lowercase? It's not the beginning of the sentence. Is there another reason we need it? It's his name, isn't it? So we need a capital. Which do we want? Could be those, any of those, couldn't it? Oh, when we read it in the book, it had looked like that, didn't it? Turnip, nip, nip. Then turnip ran, ran, ran. Up. We know that little word up, up, up. Into. We know into, that's another word we know. Into. Then Turnip ran up into a tree. Now, let's just have a sound box for tree. Let's say it really clearly. Tree. Tree. What was the first sound I can hear? Is it tree? No, it's not tree, is it? It's tree. 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 Then Turnip ran up into a tree. What did he do then? To eat some nuts. That's a little word we know. To eat. Eat. Now, is it going to be this E, that digraph of E, or is it this digraph to say E? I think when we've seen it written down, we spell it like this. Eat. Eat. Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some. Right, well, let's have a look, use of the practice page, because we know the word we spell it like that, don't we? Those are the letters for come, that we've got that one in our head. So how about some? Does that look right? Does that look right for some? Have we seen it like that before? Yes, let's learn it. S-O-M. Ooh, what was the last one? Didn't take a proper look at it. S-O-M-E. Some. One more time. S-O-M-E. Some. We right? Yes. some. We need to know that for next time. We need to have that in our head, like come, some. Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. 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 Say it slowly. Listen to the sounds. Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. Then, we had then. Do we need a capital? No, because it's in the middle of our sentence. Then, Ben. Ben. Capital or lowercase b? It's another name, so we need a capital B. Ben scooted. Scooted. Let's stretch it out. Scooted. Scooted. Well, we know we could hear a sk. Ooh. We know the digraph for ooh, don't we? Scoot. Scoot. Scooted. Scooted. We know that it's at the end, like we see that a lot at the end of words, don't we? Scooted. Scooted. Then Ben scooted down. That's another little word we know how to spell. We've got that in our heads because we've seen it lots in our books. Scooted down into his cage. Now this is how we spelt this word cage. It's a bit tricky. What do you think the tricky part of cage is? Yes, this part here, isn't it? Normally we'd think that'd make the k sound, but in this word it's making the j sound. Cage. Cage. Spell cage like that. What we're going to choose to tell the reader to make their voice go down and stop. Is it an exciting story? Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben scooted down into his cage. Does that make sense? Let's read it again. Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben... Oh, something's gone wrong here, hasn't it? For the writer, we always have to reread to make sure it makes sense, and we've left something out, haven't we? Let's see if you can find out what it is. Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben, was it Ben that scooted down to his cage? No, it was Turnip. Ben shouted, didn't he? Then Ben shouted. Let's put this little arrow in. Shh. Out. Id. At. Him. And. He. Then Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. Did that make sense? Right. Because we always have to reread. We've got to reread to make sure it makes sense so that it says what we wanted it to say. We have to reread to check that the words look right for what we wanted it to say. We've got to check for capital letters. Capital letter at the beginning, capital letter for a name. And what else do we need to check for? Is it exciting? Then Turnip ran up into a tree to eat some nuts. Then Ben shouted at him and he scooted down into his cage. It is quite exciting, isn't it? So I think we'll choose an exclamation mark to tell the reader to read it in an excited way. Right, so that's how I carried the story on. You might carry the story on in a different way. Something else might happen to Turnip. He might not run up a tree. He might run off into the garden somewhere. He might be really cheeky and start doing some really naughty things. You decide.